Can archaeologists accurately describe and explain everything they find? No, of course they can't. And nor should we expect them to. We shouldn't expect scientists to come up with all the answers either. There are limits to their knowledge and skills too. We have to accept that there are some ancient mysteries that can't be solved, and you'll see some of the best of them in this video. The same ancient shipwreck that gave us the Antikythera mechanism turned up another treasure in June 2022, when marine archaeologists located what's thought to be the long-lost 2,000-year-old head of a statue of the Roman god Hercules. The shipwreck, which is off the coast of Greece, was first discovered by sponge divers in 1900 and has been undergoing constant archaeological assessments ever since. It's thought to have been in its current position since around the year 60 BCE. The marble head has been overlooked until now because it's in such poor condition that it was thought to be a misshapen rock. It was only possible to identify it as a head after divers also found the statue's plinth, complete with the lower parts of its legs. The head isn't the only remarkable discovery to happen at the dive site recently. Archaeologists have also found 2 human teeth embedded into marine deposits, thus confirming that at least one person didn't escape the vessel before it went down. Historians think this 130-foot-long vessel was on its way to Rome from somewhere in the eastern Mediterranean when it sank during a storm, but hope to learn more from these new discoveries. We know that the Black Death was the most deadly plague that ever swept the face of planet Earth. We also know that the plague was at its peak between 1346 and 1352. What we've never known is where the plague started, but that might recently have changed. After examining thousands of medieval tombstones, researchers believe they might have traced the origins of the Black Death to a specific and unlikely location. If they are right, it started close to Lake Issyk-Kul in what's now Kyrgyzstan. A disproportionately high number of burials took place in the nearby cemeteries of Burana and Karajagak took place between 1338 and 1339, with the cause of death listed as pestilence. Scientists opened the graves of 3 of the individuals and identified plague bacterium in all of them. From here, the plague likely made its way to Western Europe on trade ships and went on to kill around 50% of the entire population of Europe. While it was once thought that rats were to blame for the transmission of the Black Death, it's now thought more likely that it was passed on by infected fleas. About 1,200 years ago, a Viking sword was broken into 2 pieces. In June 2022, the pieces of the rare sword were finally reunited. The reunification of the sword is made all the more amazing that the pieces of it weren't even discovered at the same time. The first was found by an amateur metal detectorist scouring Stavanger on the west coast of Norway in 2021. The second was found by another metal detectorist on nearby farmland in spring 2022. After putting the pieces back together, historians have been able to identify the Viking sword as a type that was popularly used for several centuries in France, Britain, and Ireland, but originally came from the UK. It's impressive that they've been able to reach that conclusion despite the most important part of the sword, by which we mean the blade, still being missing. There's enough left of the hilt for the academics to be able to study its decorative patterns, intricate carvings, and silver and gold details. By doing so, they can say with confidence that it was forged in either England or the Frankish Empire somewhere close to the start of the 9th century. The type of steel used in most manufacturing processes today is stainless steel, which is selected because it's resistant to rust. The substance is also known as chromium steel, and is generally thought of as a relatively recent invention. That isn't the case. As of September 2020, we know that chromium steel was invented in Persia more than 1,000 years ago. The Journal of Archaeological Science reports that the origins of stainless steel have been traced back to Chahak in Iran. It's there that the ancient manuscript, A Compendium to Know the Gems, was written by Abi Reyhan Biruni, and within that manuscript is a basic set of instructions for creating the rust-resistant material. The text was written during the 11th century at the latest, but it could be a century older. Chahak's claim on the invention is further backed up by the recent discovery of 2 smithing slags in the area, both of which have been dated to the 12th century and contain evidence of crucible steel creation. The archaeological evidence is strong enough for this to be accepted as fact, but experts aren't sure why the steel didn't go on to be made anywhere else, or why the science behind it appears to have been forgotten and then rediscovered again centuries later. The Viking civilization may have started life in Scandinavia, but it spread far and wide. We know that the Vikings made it to North America, so by comparison, Iceland was a short trip for them. In May 2022, a human-made cave was discovered in the tiny Icelandic village of Oddi, and archaeologists are convinced that Viking settlers are responsible for its existence. Oddi once belonged to a powerful Viking clan called the Odaverjar, most notably led by Saymundur the Learned, who lived from 1056 to 1133, and wrote much of what we know about the early kings of Norway. Work on the newly discovered cave system probably began during his lifetime. Experts think it might be a nautaheller, which is a kind of medieval-era cattle and horse stall. The work of archaeologists inside the cave is dangerous, because it was carved from soft sandstone and could collapse at any time. There's likely to be more to discover in the deeper recesses of the cave, but it might take a while for archaeologists to figure out a way to get there safely. Archaeologists in Egypt are still puzzled about the discovery of a collection of skeletons in Bernice Troglodytica in May 2022. It's not the fact that they found human remains that puzzles them. It's the fact that the skeletons were all found huddled together. This site, also known as Berenice, was an important Red Sea port city during the time of ancient Egypt. We don't know whether the 7 people in the tombs were sailors or maritime merchants, but they were found interred in stone boxes, with the bones of their lower limbs resting on their chests. This burial method is so rare that it's never been recorded in Egypt before. Scientific analysis of the remains suggests that the burial occurred around 1,500 years ago. The body couldn't be posed like this naturally, so the deceased would have likely been bound with rope around the neck and legs. This sounds almost like a punishment, but the burial goods inside the tombs suggest that these people were elite members of society. It's a mystery, and not one that we're likely to solve anytime soon. Returning to Europe, we find the statues known as the Giants of Mont Prama standing close to Cabras in the west of Sardinia, an island that belongs to Italy. They're impressively large creations. Each of them stands 8 feet tall, and they have large, flat, disc-shaped eyes that make many people who look upon them feel a little uneasy. They've stood the test of time, but nobody knows quite how much time they've spent standing there. Most experts place the date of their creation between 3,100 and 2,800 years ago, and point to the Nuragic civilization as the most likely builders. Unfortunately, our records of the Nuragic people aren't extensive. They were driven from their land by the Roman Empire around 2,200 years ago, and the Romans stamped almost every trace of them out of existence. They must have taken a liking to the sculptures, though, because they left them alone. The 1974 discovery of ancient tombs close to the statues implies that they might have been positioned there to guard the dead, but that's just speculation. Archaeology hasn't been a major concern in Ukraine during 2022 for obvious reasons, but that doesn't mean that archaeological discoveries weren't made by accident. In May, Ukrainian soldiers digging trenches in Odessa were surprised to discover a collection of ancient Greek amphorae. The discovery was made by members of the Ukrainian 126th Territorial Defense, who alerted staff from a nearby museum where the artifacts are now on display. Experts at the museum believe that the cache of urns is around 2,500 years old. They date to a time when Odessa was known as Odessus, which was founded by the Romans. Finds like this, where ancient artifacts are recovered safely, are a welcome break from the norm in Ukraine at the moment. International observers say that more than 120 sites of cultural importance have been damaged by the ongoing conflict, but the true number could be even higher than that. We're not yet sure what was once inside these recently recovered amphorae, but they were typically used to store liquid or dry goods, so it could have been anything from wine to the grapes used to make it. You'll find the strange stone ornaments known as the Diquí spheres all over Costa Rica. They're not rare. In fact, they're so common that some people even use them as lawn decorations. As ubiquitous as they are, though, nobody's really sure where they came from. They're thought to be native to the land, and so were probably carved by Costa Rica's indigenous people. But there may be no connection between those indigenous Costa Ricans and the people who live there now. Instead, they might have been carved and shaped by a civilization that's been lost to time. Workers from the United Fruit Company were the first to bring the spheres to the world's attention during the 1930s, as they began to dig them up during the course of their labor. It's likely that they were made by taking boulders that already had a rounded shape and enhancing the shape by fracturing, grinding, and pecking them. It's hard to know when this was done, but archaeologists think it was somewhere between the 8th and 16th centuries, which is quite a large window. Nobody can offer even a vague theory as to why they were made, but they were obviously significant to somebody. The ancient city of Uruk in southern Iraq has been a focal point for archaeologists for the past several years, and discoveries like this one are the reason why. It's a 4,000-year-old bitumen boat, and it was found in Uruk by an international team of archaeologists in 2018. Based on the condition of the ancient vessel, it seems that the experts got to it just in time. It was at severe risk of erosion and damage from traffic passing over the main road just yards from where it was discovered. The body of the boat is made from a mixture of palm leaves, reeds, and wood, all of which are strengthened and held together by a covering layer of bitumen. It's 20 feet long and 4 feet wide. Based on the design, it's likely that the boat was a trading vessel, as it doesn't appear to be adequately equipped for fishing. Back when the boat was built, this part of Iraq was the capital of Sumeria. It was the world's largest city and had a population of roughly 80,000 people. Wooden relics of this age are found only rarely because wood has a tendency to rot, but this one has survived because it was entombed within a dried-up canal. We got a rare look at the tools used by ancient surgeons when a funerary bundle was found in the Huaca Las Ventanas site in Peru in March 2022. The burial appears to be that of a sickened surgeon who was laid to rest, surrounded by all of his tools and instruments approximately 1,000 years ago. This is the first discovery of a surgeon's tomb from this era in northern Peru. Unsurprisingly, many of the tools would be considered primitive by modern standards. The surgical kit includes needles, awls, and 50 different bronze alloy knives with single cutting edges. The knives have high arsenic content, the purpose of which is unknown. Also within the kit is a piece of bark from a tree that scientists haven't yet been able to identify, but it's possible the bark was used as anti-inflammatory medication, or perhaps an analgesic, and may have been used in the same way that we still make aspirin tea from white willow bark today. We'll never know the surgeon's name, but the fact that he was also buried with a gold mask and a large bronze pectoral is a sign that he lived comfortably and was held in high regard. Most scientists and historians agree that modern humans first emerged in Africa around 200,000 years ago. If that's true, who was starting fires in Israel 800,000 years ago? Scientists from the Weizmann Institute of Science have been able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that controlled burning was used on stone tools found at a site called Evron Quarry in western Galilee. This is the earliest evidence of the controlled use of fire and forces us to reconsider the capabilities of ancient hominins. No fewer than 26 flint tools recovered from the site show evidence of having been heated, some of them to temperatures exceeding 600 degrees Celsius. An elephant tusk recovered from the site has also been heated by fire, possibly in the process of the animal being cooked. Until now, we didn't even suspect that pre-Homo sapiens were capable of developing pyrotechnology, let alone how they might have used it. This is a whole new field for archaeologists to study, and might change our entire understanding of the distant past. If the existence of ancient fire can be proven here, where else might it have happened? Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon!